Hi, my name is Laurel Smith. Today is February 12th, 2022 for Bio 225 microbiology class, and I will be doing the exercise 2 for the environmental influences on the microbial growth, salt intolerance, and pH. But we'll be doing the pH testing, and this is for week 6, lab 9, exercise 2. And I have my clean area, I have my PPE on, I have my candle to do the sterilization, I have my alcohol with the pipette inside, I have my active cerevisiae and my active culture of my S. epidermis. And I will be also adding some of the hydrochloric acid to 2 of my test tube broths of S. epidermis and S. cerevisiae of the pH for both of those, and sodium hydrochloride I'll be adding to my broth of my pH 9 S. epi and my pH 9 S. cerevisiae test tubes. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do, the instructions was a little bit confusing to me, so I had to really read over it and make for sure I understood what I did. I did go ahead and place in permanent marker for all 6 of my test tubes. I placed 3 of the S. epidermis, pH 5, pH 7, and pH 9. And then the other 3, I did the S. cerevisiae of pH 5, pH 7, pH 9. And we're going to go ahead and remove the test tube of the pH 5. And I'm going to sterilize my S. epidermis for the pH 5. I'm going to sterilize. And I'm going to add only 1 drop of the hydrochloric acid into the tube. Okay, 1 drop. I'm going to sterilize the lid, and I'm going to place the lid back on. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing with my pH 5 of S. cerevisiae. And I'm going to sterilize. And also place 1 drop of the hydrochloric acid inside the broth of the pH 5. Sterilize. I'm trying to show you I'm doing it. And I'm going to place the lid back on. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and cap the hydrochloric acid, and I'm going to move on to my pH 9 of my S. epidermis. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to sterilize the lid. Here is my sodium hydrochloride. And I'm also going to place 1 drop, I believe, yes, 1 drop of my sodium hydrochloride and my pH 9 broth tube. Going to sterilize again in my S. epidermis. and a cap. And I'm going to do the same thing with the S. cerevisiae. Sterilize. And I'm going to place 1 drop of the sodium hydrochloroside into my pH 9 S. cerevisiae. Sterilize again. And cap. Now I'm going to dispose my hydrochloroside acid and my sodium hydroperoxide in the trash in a paper napkin. And now I have my pH 5 of my S. cerevisiae and my S. epidermis. See it there? And I have my S. cerevisiae and S. epidermis here as well. Okay, so I don't want to mix them up, so I'm gonna keep them there. And I'm going to move on to the my active cerevisiae and my active S. epidermis. And I'm going to place 2 drops of my S. cerevisiae cultures into my 3 of my S. cerevisiae pH broths. So let me get these all together. Okay, so I have my pH 7 and my active my active S. cerevisiae. I'm going to remove. Jeez, these are tight. There we go. And I'm going to take my active S. cerevisiae and I'm going to sterilize it. I'm going to sterilize my pH 7 S. cerevisiae as well. And I'm going to take my clean pipette and I'm going to put 2 active drops from my active culture cerevisiae into all of my pH tubes. So I just did the pH 7 S. cerevisiae. Sorry, I messed up. I'm so sorry. I meant to sterilize. I'm sterilizing now of my pH 7 and I'm capping. I'm going to do the same thing with my pH 5 S. cerevisiae. I'm going to sterilize the pH 5 and I'm going to take my pipette of my active S. cerevisiae and place 2 drops into the tube. And I'm going to sterilize my pH 5 S. cerevisiae and cap. I'm going to do the same thing with my pH 9 S. cerevisiae. I'm going to add the 2 drops of my active Cerevisiae cultures into the pH 9, and I'm going to now put my pipette and my alcohol, and I'm going to sterilize my pH 9 Cerevisiae, and I'm going to sterilize my active S. Cerevisiae. And I'm going to put it back in the refrigerator after I sterilize and recap for future experiments. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with my pH 7 S. epidermis and my active S. epidermis culture. Going to remove the lids. I'm going to sterilize. Just getting my pipette ready after sterilizing it with alcohol. So let's sterilize the culture, the active culture of the S. epidermis. And I'm going to sterilize the pH 7 S. epidermis. Okay. I'm going to take my clean pipette and get some of my active S. epidermis and place 2 drops in the pH 7 S. epidermis. I'm going to sterilize again the lid and place the cap back on. And I'm going to do the same to my pH 5 S. epidermis. Going to sterilize. And I'm going to take my pipette and add 2 drops. 1, 2. Sterilize my pH 5 broth tube of S. epidermis. Cap it. And I'm going to do the last S. epidermis pH 9. Sterilize as well. As you can see, I did all 6 just the same, of placing 2 drops of my active S. epidermis. 2 drops. Sanitizing of the pH 9 of S. epidermis. And lastly, I will be sterilizing my S. epidermis active culture and placing that also along in the refrigerator for future experiments. And now I will incubate my pH broths of my S. cerevisiae and my S. epidermis for 24 hours. And I will return with my results. So you have the S. cerevisiae pH 9, the S. epidermis pH 5, and the these are all 3 S. cerevisiae pH 7. So 7, 5, and 9. And you have the pH 7 S epidermis, of pH 5 and pH 9. These will all be incubated for 24 hours. And I will return with my results in 24 hours. Thank you for your time.